Hello, photographers, and welcome back to the show. This is the Wedding Photography Show. I'm being all dorky. I don't know why. It's Thursday. I'm a little slap happy. It's been a long but good week. Mark and I are being joined tonight by our friend Rick Bradbury. Rick is a UK-based photographer who's been shooting weddings for 4 years and who also shoots portraits and products and all kinds of good stuff. But tonight he's joining us to talk all about weddings. So
yeah, and we welcome him with open arms.
Yes, and we welcome and thank you, Rick, for coming on. Want to say hello to everybody who's joining us in the chat. We've got Steve here, and Roderick, and Danny, and Stuart, and Alexis. Hey, Alexis, it's been a while. How's it going? And Jason, hello. Jason, you're making the show tonight. That's awesome. Sandy, I love what happened to the other feed. I'm not sure which other feed you mean. Oh, yeah, I know what other feed. The other feed, that was me initially trying to start the stream earlier and streaming it to the wrong stream feed stream. So, sorry about that mix-up. Hello, Paul D. from Denver. Welcome, everybody. And I think we might have a couple of new people here. So just how we like to start the show, we're actually going to start with letting Rick introduce himself and tell you guys a little bit about him. And then we want to know what you guys have been up to this week in photography, and we'll share with you guys what we've been up to. And then we will talk about weddings. So,
hey, can I interrupt for a quick second?
Well, yeah.
Can you switch the view so we see the stream view?
Oh, yeah, sure. You mean you don't just want to look at my ugly mug?
Okay. Sometimes. But
all right, there you go.
There we go, thanks.
Okay, so Leroy has joined us, and Peter is here. Excellent. Yeah, it's midnight for Rick. So, Rick, tell us a little bit about yourself, your photography, how you got into weddings, and all of that good fun stuff.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me, everybody.
Yeah.
This has been in the works for about 2 years, I believe, hasn't it, Spyros, I think? We've been saying that we'll collaborate, we'll do something, and then you've been basically waiting for me to get my ass in gear. And here we are. So, hello, everybody. It is midnight in the UK. I'm used to these kind of hours, so it doesn't really faze me that much. Although, if you do see me snoring, just... I'll be good to go. Be fine.
That's really why you're streaming from the couch, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, my webcam has zero control over exposure, so I look like I am, I don't know, Jesus or something right now, glowing. So that's that. It's just metering's well off, and metering is probably something we'll talk about later, maybe. Anyway. So please bear with me with that. Let me introduce myself. My name's Rick Bradbury, based in Stockport in the UK, which is just 10 miles south of Manchester, where you'll find Manchester City, Manchester United football clubs, if anyone's familiar with that sport. I've been into photography now for, I think, I want to say 13, 14 years, I think. How old am I? Anyway,
that's what I end up doing when people ask me. I'm like,
One, 2, 3, 4.
Gotta take off my shoes.
Yeah.
I started with a compact camera, a Sony T3 V, I want to say, something along those lines, and then gravitated towards DSLRs. A good friend of mine, Mark, not Mark, different Mark, but he's a good friend. Oh, God, I'll just climb out of this hole. Right. He gave me a 350D from Canon, and let me loose an Albert Docks, which is over at Liverpool in the UK, and since then I was absolutely hooked, and eventually found my way, after doing mini projects, 365s, shooting everything under the sun, into portrait work and studios, and that kind of then gravitated towards doing some event work, some products, and then eventually, after saying, I'm never shooting a wedding, not going to do it, nah, no, don't want to do it, and here I am, photographing wedding. So, and ironically, I really do enjoy them. They've been a ton of fun. I get to work with a good friend of mine who, by the way, is somewhere in this chat. So if you hear anything bad about me from a certain person called Stuart McClellan, please ignore it.
Okay, Stuart, that means bring it on. Yeah. Bring it on, bring it on.
I think that's what it means.
Oh, yeah. I think a good friend of mine, Mark, should be watching, I believe, as well, although I don't know what handle he's chosen. But that's me. I mean, I've been working photographing people for a long time now, and that's what I love to do. The product and still life stuff that I do as well is my getaway from that, because I've tried going doing landscapes and I just look at it, I go, this is nice, I want a person to photograph.
Right.
Whereas with a product and still life, I can just zone in, switch off and kind of get to work doing that. And it's something different from the portrait and weddings that I've been doing. So that's my kind of release, if you will, from that kind of work.
So
I've rambled on about it.
Are the weddings the primary part of your business?
I would say weddings and portraits, ranging from headshots, portraits, corporate headshots, portraits of individuals, family portraits, most definitely. I've done a couple recently in the studio. I've got another couple booked in already. I've got a meeting next week for another wedding client as well. So that's the big part of it. Although another arm of the business is teaching and helping others, and that's from one-to-one teaching and mentoring through to group workshops or group events. I have started to put a couple of things up on YouTube, although nothing to the level that Spyros has done. I've got a long way and a lot of videos to catch up with him. But I've made a bit of a dent and a bit of a start, so more will come that way. And that's kind of come from enjoying helping people and seeing people kind of progress and grow. And finally think, I actually understand that, and I can now move forward and do something with it.
Right.
It's very gratifying to do. I mean, I think that Spyros and Mark will probably say the same as well with the work they've done on YouTube. It's, like for this show, for example, I mean, who would have thought that you could be sat watching a show for free live on the internet with multiple different photographers engaging within the community, all with a simple computer and a broadband connection. Done.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of photographers that do like a weekly stream like we do. Like there's the odd, like I know Tony and Chelsea do something once in a while, and a few others do, but I think we're probably the most regular out of the ones that I know, anyways. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I've jumped in some of the live shows late at night. I'll not necessarily catch them all every single one because of the time difference, but I enjoy the.
Wait, you don't watch every show? Okay, you gotta go. No, I'm just kidding.
Goodbye.
Okay, a quick question.
Wait. We got to know what you're drinking, because Joe Edelman and Mark are both Coca-Cola drinkers. I drink water. What are you drinking there? That looked like a bottle.
It was a bottle. Oh, here we go. Right.
Come on, let us see it.
Drinking Pedigree.
Okay. Amber Ale.
Amber Ale.
Nice.
Yep, an Amber Ale, which is based in Burton-on-Trent.
Cool.
This is the first for me. I've never had this before, but I do like my ales. So,
all right. So 30-second beer review, ale review.
30-second ale review. Right. Is that 30 seconds to chug it?
Yeah.
Right.
Because I'll do it.
Could make the show interesting.
All right. So let's get down to business here, right?
Wait, can I ask a quick question to RJ?
Yeah.
Are you actually a full-time photographer?
Not yet. I am working towards it. It's the end goal, if you will, and the carrot hanging in front of you that keeps on moving when you do. The mountain that you have to climb. I'm working on it. I'm hoping this year to cut hours down in the day job, because I am so done with that thing. And to move forward with it. And I'm hoping that the transition, the smart thing to do is the part-time, hours down, hours up doing photography, and then eventually get to the point where something's got to give. Well, bye-bye day job. And I would love to be able to just go, do you know what? This, and just go for it. But sensible hat on is preventing me doing that at the moment. I'm trying to make sure things are covered finance-wise, for your outgoings and your commitments in day-to-day life as well.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's my friend
I'm not nearly busy enough to justify not quitting my job at this stage of the game, not even remotely close.
Yeah.
But
it's difficult.
Mark, you also aren't trying to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Like what I'm doing now, I actually enjoy doing, so I don't mind going to work every day. But getting older, I wouldn't mind 4-day work weeks instead of 5-day work weeks.
Right. Okay, so we've already had a couple questions in the chat, so we'll go ahead with those. And we want to let you know, of course, that if you are watching, questions are more than welcome. So feel free to go ahead and pop them in, and we will answer them as quickly as we can as we go through the discussion. We also have some stuff that we solicited questions earlier in the week, so we have some comments and questions from folks there. And we'll start with Roderick's question in the chat. Roderick said, I'm thinking of naming my wedding photography portion of my business Managed Expectations, and he's wondering if we think this is a good name for a wedding photography business. So go ahead, Rick, you can go, well, I'll take a turn and weigh in on it, but why don't you start,
Okay.
Rick?
Managing Expectations, quite a funny name and quite apt into some points. Because you need to manage the client's expectations of the service they're going to get, what they're going to get delivered during the day, what the end result is, and you will be managing people during the day as well. You're going to have to wrestle that pint pot out of Uncle Bob's hand, and you're going to have to tell that lady to put the damn iPad away, because that stuff happens. But, okay, personally, in all seriousness, here's my take on photography business names. For me, I would rather the name be a more personal one to you and your business. I mean, if you've got an already established business doing other photography work, I don't know what that is. If you have, then okay, it makes sense to do a different name at that point. But for me, I would rather have a personal business name as RJ Bradbury Photography, and the wedding aspect of it is part of that cumulative business. Because for me, it says, here is what I do, this is my work, this is me, and you put yourself out there rather than being some other name. And I see some terrible names online, like Fast Clicks Photography. You know, you've seen them yourself. They're not great, and they sound a little bit unprofessional when you start to move towards certain work, and maybe a little bit gimmicky. And for me, I don't think that name works because it sounds a bit corporate to me, and I think a different name would be stronger. Again, I don't know what you're doing now or what your business name is that you've got now. It probably can't match that, but I think it needs to be a clearer message on what it is. It could just be literally your name and weddings, and that's it. Nice and simple, straight down the line. This is me. This is my wedding business. Yeah. And that's as clear a message as you can put out there.
Yeah, I would agree, because to me, Managed Expectations doesn't really say I'm a photographer or I'm a wedding planner, or for that matter, maybe not even photography related. It just, to me, for a photography name, it doesn't work, in my opinion. I'm with RJ, where either your name or something that's more photography related, and you know, basically right up front, okay, yes, I'm a photographer, or yes, I'm a wedding photographer, or whatever the case is. Like some people will have sort of their wedding side of things separate from the rest of their photography, which is fine. But then you sometimes get into the situation where you actually then have to have two websites, one just for your wedding and one for your regular photography. So if you want to do that, that's great. But myself, I just like to keep it all as one. So obviously I just call myself Mark Everest Photography. But if you are looking to sort of separate things, then it's something to consider, that you're actually almost running two separate entities.
Yeah, definitely. It's difficult, and I think that there's something about actually using your own name in front of a photography business as well that speaks to being confident in what you can do and what you can put out there. There's a certain bravery to doing that rather than a completely separate name, limited company name, which is still valid and still you can absolutely do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it speaks better to an individual, bespoke, specific and personal service, like a portrait business, like a wedding business, and you could be doing senior portraits, which, by the way, in the UK will be taking pictures of old people. You could be doing weddings. And, using your own name, I think offers more value in doing that and something more personal. Now, there could be a negative that comes with that, because if something goes wrong,
yes,
God forbid, that's on your name. And there's decisions that you make, whether you go limited or whether you go sole trader in the UK as a business, and what comes along with that if something happens in the business and it fails, and the risks to your property, your house, and all of that kind of stuff. But in terms of your own personal name, your family name, if something goes wrong and your business is under that name, that can kind of come back on you. So there's that side of it as well. So I totally get why people would go, I'm not comfortable with using my full name in front of a business, but let's give it this name that still speaks to what I want to do, and still conveys the message for what the business wants to do as well. Still, I've gambled and jumped and said this, RJ Bradbury Photography, and this is what I do. Mark, just quickly, I don't want to kind of go on too long here, but Mark mentioned getting to the point where you need 2 websites, and quite frankly, eventually I will probably do the same, specifically for the weddings, even though it's going to be RJ Bradbury Photography, the main umbrella, if you will. Eventually, the work that I'm doing for headshots and family portraits, whilst they can kind of mix, certainly the family portraits can, I think it's better on a marketing perspective to then go, okay, I need to get a new website, new domain, and then make something completely bespoke for the wedding side only at that point. Because it's a very specific type of job that you're doing and type of client. And the 2 will cross, families, weddings.
Yeah, especially if you do a lot. Especially
weddings lead to babies, families, all that.
Yeah. I think if you do a lot of weddings, then having a separate entity is a good thing. But if you just like myself, I only do 1 or 2 a year if I'm lucky. But I actually this year I'm doing more second shooting than I am main shooting, and so for me having a separate one for weddings doesn't make sense. But if you do have a lot of clients and do a lot of weddings, and absolutely I could totally see having a separate website just for your wedding work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll get there eventually. I don't know about my friend who's in the chat, Stuart. And by the way, full disclosure, he second shoots for me. I second shoot for him. Basically, whoever books a gig, the other fella picks up the second shooter role. And we refer other work obviously to each other as well. Dude, I've got something on. I can't do this job. It's a client that I do not want to let down. Can you cover it? Yep, no problem.
Yeah, nice.
And we both know what each other's capable of and what we can do. So we have complete trust in just saying, here you go. Boom. Go and get that done.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about the business names, and whilst we're working together within our own businesses, we're not working together as a one business, if you will. And who knows, maybe something may happen in the future. I'm waiting for a comment from him now after that. But it's
he's probably thinking, no way.
But who knows? We're more than happy working with each other, even during something as frightening and as high pressured as a wedding is. Like, they're hard work. They're damn hard work to do.
Right.
My base salary or my base rate when I do weddings is higher than doing like just regular family work or headshots and that sort of thing. Is just because it is so much more work, and a lot of people don't realize.
Absolutely, yeah. If you charge someone for a family portrait, the rates that you're charging for your middle to top wedding package, they go, what?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
You'd have to be really high up in at the top of the mountain to charge that much. And there's people that do charge a lot for family stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. My quick weigh in on the question of the name. I agree with everything you guys said. Roderick came back in and said the name was meant to be kind of a joke. And Rick, you picked up on that and addressed it. He does have a question, and this is something that's come up in a couple of questions, so we'll take this next. And I'll just weigh in quick on the name first, which is, to me, the name is important to a particular level, but the name in the end isn't really going to matter. What's really going to matter is what you deliver as that photographer, the services and the end product, which are the photos that you deliver. Because if you do the work and you do good work and you deliver that consistently, then people will associate your business name, whatever it happens to be, with the quality of work that you do. And whether it's, Managed Expectations or Spyros Heniadis Photography, or I shoot pretty fancy clicks photos, clickety click, I mean, obviously I agree. You want a name that is not like super, unless your whole like shtick is that kind of like super whimsical or whatever. But these are all things to think about as part of branding, and branding is like a whole separate topic that we could talk about. So I don't want to go too much deeper, but to me, what's more what is more important is focusing on what you are delivering from front to back, the whole customer experience, because that association with the name is what's going to make the name powerful, not the name itself.
Agreed. Yeah. It's all about the work.
Sorry.
That's okay, buddy. Sorry to cut in there. It's definitely all about the end product and the work that you do. The end result, the quality of the work, the images. But this is going into branding a little bit, which you don't want to go too far into because that could be a whole other show. But your brand as a photographer is you. It's you. Yes, there's branding. Yes, there's marketing. Yes, there's logos. There's color coordination for your brands, choosing the right font and all that stuff. But it's you. And it all boils down to you and how you are on the day and how you interact with the clients and how you provide the service. Something's going to go wrong on a wedding day. The wedding car's going to break down. The cake's going to collapse. You've just got to flow like water and just get it done. You're going to be the person that they're going to come to when shit goes wrong. Pardon my French.
Yeah, you just have to roll with the punches.
Oh, yeah. So that is a big part of your brand. And that's what they're going to remember. Yes, though, you really do hope they remember the photographs, the moments that you capture. But if you're really nice, really easy to work with on the day and provide a great service, they are definitely going to talk about that going forward and remember that aspect of it. Yeah. So I couldn't agree with you more on that one, Spyros.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the next question, which is tangential to some of the stuff that you've already been talking about. So it's a pretty perfect segue. And Hey IME asked, and also had somebody ask on YouTube. Hey IME says, I've always been intrigued by wedding photography, but I know I wouldn't be able to handle the stress and overwhelming pressure to get every shot just right. How did you handle it when you first started? And related to that, somebody was asking, I got to find it. I think it was actually Stuart saying with the joke, how do you manage the expectations of your clients so that you're not over-promising and under-delivering? Because ideally, you under-promise and over-deliver. And that's not to say that you sell yourself short, but that you correctly manage the expectations of your clients so that when you deliver the product, they are blown away by that. So how do both of you guys manage that in the work that you do? Both the pants wedding fear of screwing up somebody's wedding memories, because that's what I experienced when I shot the one and only wedding I did, which I promised a friend I would do, which is the only reason I did it. And then two, managing the expectations of your clients and the people you work with so that they know what to expect, and you can deliver on that expectation.
Yeah, that's definitely a great question. But myself, I make sure, basically at the time when they're actually even just asking about your services, for the most part, I lay down pretty much what they're going to expect or what they should expect out of me. For myself, I don't do packages. I basically just charge X amount of dollars per hour. And then if they do want anything after the fact, then absolutely I can supply it. But that's not the way I like to offer it. So I make sure that they know that up front, and they know what the deliverable is. And then anything on top of that can be added. So for me, the big thing is communication. If you don't communicate well, that's where you start running into issues and end up not delivering. And also, like Spyros said, I always deliver more than what I promise because, like I said, it looks good. Normally what I'll do is I'll supply a couple of prints. I don't even tell them about it. That's part of what I do, and then basically when I deliver them their images, if they haven't ordered anything else, and I also give them a couple of prints so they can see right in their face what a good quality print looks like, and that way they know I could buy prints that look like this, or I can go to Walmart and end up with prints that don't look so good. So it's like I said, the biggest thing is communication. You got to talk to your client, make sure they know what to get, and basically always stay in contact with them up to the wedding day, so they're comfortable with you and they get to know you, because for that day you are basically going to be part of their family and part of the day. You're an important part of that day.
Now, before you jump in, Rick, Mark, can you kind of elaborate? Because when you say like you managing and explaining to them what they're getting, can you, for the people who are watching, can you actually give us a breakdown of like what the services are that are included? Because you were saying you sell your pack, you don't do like a package, you just do, you know, X number of hours, X number of dollars. But at the same time, you were talking about managing and letting them know what you deliver in those hours. Can you break that down for people so they understand what it is you're doing during that time for your clients that they're expecting of you?
Right. So basically, then what I tell them is that they get me for the number of hours they book me for. I let them know what the final deliverable is with just the basic package, which is basically basic edited photos, no high-end retouching, and I also basically let them know that if they do have any particular pictures that they're looking to get printed out, that they want to print out at a larger size, I'd go into more editing with those images, like just a small handful. Anything more than that, then I would charge them more. So I'd let them know that sort of information, and for the most part, that's it. I just basically, as things come up, I encourage them to ask questions. You get the odd one who wants to know what gear you use, but most of the time they don't care. And in my opinion, it shouldn't matter what gear you have, as long as basically I tell them what you see on my website is what to expect, and that is hopefully. I basically tell them my work should speak for itself. If you like my style, then that's why you're hiring me. If you don't like my style, then that's fine. Go with the guy whose style you like, because that way the client is getting what they want.
Another follow-up for you, Mark, and then Rick, I'd like to hear your same thoughts on these questions that I'm asking Mark for everybody. You talked about how important communication is with the client, and that obviously is you cannot understate how important the communication is. And to that end, like how do you communicate with your clients? And when I say that, I'm talking both about like the channels. In other words, do you do phone, email, Facebook Messenger, all of the above, none of the above, text messages, and how available are you to them? In other words, because I'm sure there are brides who are like, oh my God, and oh my God, right? And it's like, oh my God. And so how do you deal with that and actually managing the communication aspect of it?
Right. So for me, typically the initial inquiry either comes in via like a Facebook message or an email. Those are for me, those are the most common ones. And from there, I usually give them a link to my website so that they can check out my work, and I'll let them know if they have any questions about anything to let me know. And then if they decide to proceed from there, then we usually have a second meeting, but we actually usually meet somewhere so we can meet face-to-face, make sure that we jive together, because that is important. If you might have that date available, but then you go meet this person, you realize, I don't think I can work with this person. That's the time for either one of you to get out of it, to find an out. And then basically from there, I fill them in a little bit more. That's usually at that point in time, I'll tell them I need a deposit of whatever it is, whatever percentages of, depending on how many hours they want. I usually tell them about 30%, 30 to 40%. and go from there. Then if the meeting goes well and everybody likes each other, then we usually meet again, so they can give me a deposit and I get them to sign a contract at that point in time. And a contract is very important. And then just after that, then it's just sort of occasional text or email back and forth just to keep in touch with each other. So that's kind of how it works for me.
Okay, awesome. So over to you, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, communication is definitely important. You need to understand what you're going to provide for them, what they're looking for. They need to understand what you're going to give them at the end. And it's very, very important if you can, and you can't always do this, but if you can meet them in person. The initial inquiry will come from social media, email, phone call, maybe, like the one I got yesterday. And we've arranged for them to meet at my studio, which is 10 minutes from my home. And the main reason for that is they live a few roads down, it turns out. They're local. So, okay, that's cool. I can come to you. And, some people may not be comfortable you going to their home. So I have, thankfully at the moment, I have that studio space. But you can meet in coffee shops, meeting rooms that you may have locally, some local venues. Or, of course, you can go to the client's home. But you've got to be clear in terms of, you need to understand what they're looking for, who they are as a client, and that will come from the initial meeting, more so in person. You can gauge someone over the phone to a point, but online and over the phone, a lot can be missed and misunderstood. Whereas communications, when you can see someone visually, I mean, even with this, it's not quite the same as in person, but it's easier to understand what someone's meaning by what they're saying and how they're interjecting and how they're coming across. It's far easier to read rather than just a voice at that point. So you need to lay down who they are, what they're looking for, what their expectations are, and the service that you provide. Let them know, this is the work that I provide, this is how I work during the day. I've worked weddings myself. My first wedding was by myself. People called me nuts. I went, "I'll be fine. No problem." Straight into it. And of course, a couple of days before, you're like, all the nerves come in. Yeah. But, you get the job done. You fall back on your research that you've done, your preparation. Mm-hmm. And you'll, in part, when you meet the client, you let them know what work you do leading up to the wedding. Okay, this is how the meeting would go. If it's an initial inquiry meeting and they're not necessarily signing to book you at that point and pay a deposit, then they're wanting to know who you are as a person, who you are as a photographer. They might want to know how you work and what the next meeting, if they do want to go ahead, is going to look like. What information are you going to need? How does he approach this? How does he want to work? With working with a second shooter, Stuart, then if we can, we will meet the clients together. That's not always possible, but ideally we will do that. And whoever's made that booking will take the lead in that meeting, but the other person is most definitely a big, big part of that. If one of us misses something in terms of a question that's asked in information or can clarify something, then I don't care if it's a booking that I've made. He can jump in absolutely fine, and vice versa. So we make sure that they know who we are, how we work, agreeing what we're going to provide. And of course, you cover yourself. You have the insurance, you have the contracts, you have the agreements. And for myself, I have packages. Stuart has packages as well. Mark, you work a little differently. My packages are laid out on the site, and the deposit for the packages is actually the second shooter's fee at this point. And there's groups on Facebook, certainly, I don't know whether they're available in the States, but certainly in the UK, where second shooters will ask if work's available, or people will post, my second shooter's ill, I need someone, and they'll find someone through that way. And the rates that are paid, they'll vary for the day. I have priced the deposits to cover that cost a little higher than what most people would pay in the UK. But the simple fact is, Stuart's a friend of mine, so I want him to be paid fairly for the work that he does in the day. But otherwise, if someone else comes on board, I want them to be taken care of. I don't want them walking away going, really, for all those hours you just you absolutely, because it's a bad deal. They're going to feed that back to other people, and it comes back to you. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather take care of people, make sure the client's taken care of. They fully understand where what they're going to get, where the line is drawn, what the expectations are. Look, like, if anything, you need anything from me during the day, anything leading up to the wedding, anything just after the wedding, if you've got any questions, just contact me. It's absolutely fine. I'm there to help. And it doesn't end at midnight. First dance is done, packing, going home. That's not the end of the job. Like, it's definitely not. Yes, you've got the processing to do, but you may field questions from clients and requests for prints. You may field requests then for, actually, no, we want to go for an album. And, oh, we've got some questions of this can be done and this can be done. Thankfully, I've not had someone come to me with too much after a wedding in terms of, I would like this wrinkle taken out and this retouching and this retouching. And frankly, within the agreements, that's going to be covered, because it's like, I'm not there to Photoshop every single picture of you. You know, you want that doing, you're going to pay for it at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a documentary service of your day. And by the way, you don't need the Photoshop. You look great as you are. This is your day as you are, this moment in your life. You do not need to be Photoshopped to death.
Right.
Yeah.
So let people know where the finish is for the work that you're going to do on the images after, and what the end product is going to be. And of course, they need to know the cost of it. And a lot of the time, and it can be disheartening, you list out your packages, maybe, for example, like myself and Stuart have done, and you've got, you know, a base package which people can get into is the lower end of the scale, maybe, so it provides for people that are on a budget. Then you've got the middle tier, which may give a pre-wedding shoot, for example, or they may provide an album or an engagement book and so forth, and it scales up from there. A lot of the time, people are ringing you and they just want to know the bottom line. They just want the coverage from ceremony to first dance, and they're not necessarily interested in the prints and the albums. And it's ultimately, it's the hard truth these days. There are definitely people who do want that, but not everybody does, and they just literally want the service, the edited images, and that's it. And it's a straight up cold transaction. Don't expect someone to come back to you after you've delivered a wedding and it's been done, you've edited, you've uploaded, you've given them the gallery, whatever you do, and, oh, they were amazing, oh, lovely, thank you. Like, you don't expect that from everybody, because you won't get that a whole lot. And some people will provide feedback, they'll provide reviews, but it's a business transaction. Provide a great service, thank you very much, and they're off. They're carrying on with their lives. They're busy. You're busy.
Yeah.
So
Right.
don't
All right. So,
expect to be gushed over it.
Yeah, that's just another quick point to add too. Like you mentioned that RJ, that you and your friend second shoot for each other. In a case like that, it's probably fine. But if you're a main photographer, or even if you've been hired for a wedding to do a second shooting for somebody you've never worked with before, it's always good even there to have a contract between the two of you. The guy I second shoot for, I've known him for years. We have a verbal agreement, and there's no contract between us, but just because we've known each other and we know we can trust each other, and everything's hunky-dory. We've never had any issues, but definitely if someone you're working with new...
Same with me and Stuart. And maybe we should have a contract. You know, anyone you speak to on the legal side of things will say, yeah, you should. But we haven't done it yet.
Right.
I can't see there being a problem, but things happen, who knows. If you saw us both together working an event or a wedding together and the names we called each other, you'd think there was a problem. There isn't.
Stuart says in the chat, happy to say we haven't sued each other yet. So I want to back up a little bit here for a second and ask both of you guys a couple of questions. So in dealing with the fear, I'm rolling all the way back to that, because I think there's a couple of good points that both of you guys touched on that I want to elaborate on, because I know for me what helped mitigate the fear when I shot the one wedding that I shot was lots and lots of preparation. Now, to be fair, for me it was easier because it was a friend and she knew she was going to have me do it, and I knew I was going to do it for her, and it was my gift to her, and she knew that. So like it wasn't a business transaction in the same sense that you guys are talking about that it is most often. That being said, I still was taking on the responsibility of photographing her, her special day, their special day, not just her, but her and her now husband. And I wanted to do a good job, and I was scared to hell that I wasn't going to. So what helped for me was the preparation. And I know there were a couple of things that I did to prepare to make sure that I would do everything that I needed to do and that it would be a successful shoot. But you guys doing it on a more regular basis, I'd like you to elaborate on these things. So one of the things that was a huge, huge, huge help to me was talking to the bride and the groom and putting together the shot list of all of the photos that I knew I had to have. You know, from them together, the whole family, the wedding party. You know, I need Aunt Mitzi. You know, I need the puppy or whatever it is. I had the whole shot list of the ceremony photos I needed to get. You know, the first kiss, the dinner stuff that I needed to get, what they wanted me to photograph, what they didn't. And I had that with me. I went over it like 5 or 6 times. I was going over it ravenously and repeatedly throughout the day, making sure I didn't miss anything. And then knowing that shot list, preparing and checking and double and triple checking my gear to make sure everything was functioning properly, all my batteries were charged, all my cards were clean, and all my lights were ready and working and all of that sort of stuff, and making sure I had the gear to accomplish what I needed. Just to elaborate on that quick, one of the shot sets was going to be photographing the bride, the groom, and the wedding party on the green of a golf hole on the golf course. And I knew that we were going to be doing that round about the worst time of the day, which is noon, when the sun is absolutely at its worst. And better yet, it was a perfectly clear day. So I knew that I needed more powerful lights to be able to take a decent photo, which meant I rented some gear in order to accomplish that. So these are some of the things that I did to prepare for the one wedding to help me. And I wanted to share that experience with those of you who are watching. But now, Rick, if you want to start, if you want to share like the preparation process that you go through to make sure that you are prepared and can mitigate that pants sweating fear of, you know, getting and not screwing up that day, because that a number of people asked about that. Sandy said, you know, Sandy wanted to know if you were scared for your first wedding shoot, and both of, you know, I know Rick, you already said you were. Mark, I'm guessing you probably were as well.
I wasn't so bad because I didn't shoot the first one on my own. I shot it. We sort of teamed together, okay. and the girl that I shot with, she hadn't done a lot of weddings either, but she did a couple, but this was my first one, and we worked well together, and it went well, and so it wasn't so bad. For the most part, I'm a pretty calm, level-headed guy at the best of times, anyways. So it takes a lot to really get me frazzled and upset about stuff like that. So most of the time.
So you're Mr. Cool.
I might get a little bit excited. So I wouldn't say I don't get excited, because I always get excited because you're meeting new people and what have you. But I wouldn't really say I get nervous per se.
Mm-hmm. So Rick, why don't you go ahead and share with us your preparation process, and then Mark, you can do the same to give people some additional tips and help that they can use in preparing to do this themselves if they do decide to take on the responsibility of shooting a wedding.
Okay, no problem. Now, preparing for a wedding, it's a big task, it's a big job. You're working for 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 18 hours is the longest one. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart, that we've done, and this is out the door to back home, so it's a long day. So you need to prepare yourself for it, physically, mentally, because you're not going to be getting home till late. There's a lot of physical work to do as well, so you need to be of a certain level of fitness, or, you know, in good health to take on weddings as well. I'm not saying
a camera for 12 hours.
But yeah, you're carrying heavy bags and you're constantly moving around. I mean, I must do 500 squats when I'm at a wedding. You know, it's like I probably do the same when I'm in a studio shoot. You know, shoot from a low position, but it's like you need to be relatively good health to do it. I'm not saying you couldn't take this kind of work and other photography work on if you have a physical ailment or an illness that's a lifelong thing. Absolutely, don't let something like that stop you. Take your advice from your doctor and all that. Yeah, but you need to be prepared yourself. Now, a big part of the preparation also comes from what you do prior to you then taking paid work. And this comes down to learning the basics and the fundamentals. If you do not know what this does,
don't agree to shoot a wedding.
Winging on the prayer, auto and program mode, and you don't know how to correct it when it goes wrong. And by the way, this stupid thing here will get it wrong. Then don't take on a wedding. You need to know your gear. You need to know the fundamentals inside out. You need to know the exposure, the reciprocals. You need to know what one lens will do over another lens, where it's sharp, where it's not sharp, where it does it like backlight, will it focus, how to take care of problems as they arise. If you do not know the basics, you're setting yourself up to fail. And that comes from doing the groundwork and the homework before you even get to booking a wedding. I see too many people ask these kind of questions on Facebook where they're just about to shoot the wedding and they're asking stuff that they should already know. End of story.
Yep, I've had the same thing.
And I've been kicked out of groups because I've just said, look, I've been not nasty, but blunt, and just said, look, you need to know this stuff before you take a wedding on. Let somebody else do the job at the end of the day. And, you can't go saying that, and out you go. Oh, fine. At the end of the day, it's too damn important to not know your gear and know your stuff. It's a one-off day for most people. Okay, some people go through it a couple of times in their lives, but it's too important of a day. So get that out of the way first. Now, when it comes to preparing your gear, of course, make sure it's clean, batteries charged, cards formatted, synchronize the time on the cameras. A lot of people forget also. Oh yeah, the post-production. A lot of people forget to do that. They also forget to change the batteries in the cameras. Now, I'm not talking about the normal batteries, like these things here. It's actually the battery that's inside the camera. Now, you can't change this on all cameras, but you can on DSLRs and 5Ds. I've done it. That keeps the time in sync. It's like a watch battery, or the battery on a motherboard in a computer. It keeps things ticking over and in sync when the power's not on. You ignore that, and your cameras are not going to keep time. They're going to be out of sync, and then you're going to put the images in Lightroom, and you're going to go, hang on, that didn't happen first.
Yeah, trying to order everything.
So make sure your gear's serviceable. Do not ever turn up to a wedding or any important paid job where a client's paying you their hard-earned money with one camera and one lens. Ever. Don't do it. Don't. Because if you drop it, someone spills a drink, it just suddenly gives up on you. You're hosed. You're knackered. You've got nothing to carry on with. You need to either rent or borrow gear. If you're starting out, this is going to eat into your profits at the end of the day. But you'll get to a point where you're renting that backup gear where you're going to go, I need to pony up and get my own backup camera because it's going to be more cost effective in the long run. But don't rock up with one, whatever you do. Get all the gear prepared. Now, what I do in terms of preparing for a wedding as well, I have sheets. I don't have them printed at the moment, but I've made some notes, but I have sheets that I have copies of, and it's literally notes taken from the meetings typed up, and this is the pre-wedding meetings, the repeat meetings and repeat follow-up phone calls and emails leading up closer to the weddings because things change. You don't want to be going, right, and I need to get the pictures of Auntie Margaret and blah, 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 and someone goes, she died last week, and you don't know nothing about it. How you explain that one, but you need to keep checking that things are up to date. But ask them the shot list, the shots that they want. Mark mentioned this earlier on. Spyros mentioned it as well. I take details for venues, contact numbers, addresses, contact names of the venues, from the church to the reception venue. Sometimes you'll have 5 different spots that a wedding will move to in a day, and you need to have a contact to ring at that venue. Introduce yourself. If you can go and meet them at that venue, do so. Get eyes on. Shake the person's hand. Go to the church so you don't rock up and, by the way, this happened to me. Yes, everything's fine. No problem. You can go anywhere. Came to the day of the wedding. Oh, by the way, you can only photograph from the back of the church up there. And in your head, you want to, what do you mean? Like, what are you doing now? But there's nothing you can do. And like, so great. So the client's got back of headshots. Do you know, like, there's absolutely nothing you can do. And by the way, when you go up top in some churches, you think, well, you just go around the sides. It was just full of rubbish. Couldn't get there at all. And it's just like, okay, I have to just deal with that. But hopefully, in the preparation, you'll find out things like this prior to the day. So at least you can then go, bride and groom, I've had a chat with the church, and what they've just told me is I can't go anywhere but this location. It's going to limit what I can provide. So at least then everyone knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, and you use flash, and you not use flash. That's also important in church.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely.
To that question, real quick, Rick, and then also to you, Mark, after Rick. Do you always try to go to the locations you'll be shooting to scout them beforehand, the church, the reception hall, etc., or is it something that is limited, that you have limited ability to do because of venues or because of other situations?
I will generally, if I can, I will go and get eyes on first. Me and Stuart are the same. Mm-hmm. There are times when you just can't. You can't get their timelines or what have you, or you can't get access because they've got other events and weddings on. So you do your research online, Google Earth, recent pictures from photographs that, photographers that have worked at the weddings. It's great indicator that, so you don't rock up outside the church. You think, oh, look at these beautiful steps in the arches. This is going to be amazing. And there's a JCB, big yellow digger. Yeah, at least if you've seen recent photographs, you might catch that. But you get an idea on parking, on access, what's nearby as well. I've got a couple of notes here in terms of for the planning and preparation. I'll run through this just quickly, and then we'll go to Mark. Mm-hmm. You've got to plan, prepare, and plan and prepare some more. You can never be too prepared at the end of the day, and you just got to double and triple check everything. You need to take as many notes as you can when you're meeting the clients, location times, addresses, timescales for the day, and this includes the time it takes you to go from one venue to another.
Yep.
Because by the way, you're still packing up your gear, and the bride and groom are off; they're on the way. So you need to know how long it's going to take you to get there. Are there any major roadworks, many delays, and you can't account for an accident that happens, in traffic, but you can do the best you can to prepare for that. So I time it out. It's 15 minutes here to here. It's 10 from here to here. And you give yourself a bit of a buffer if you can. Arrive early to the first venue so you've got time to relax, find a safe spot for your gear, introduce yourself, find out where you can and you can't go just to be sure. Because the last thing you want is the ceremony going on, you go to a spot where you're not allowed and, you shouldn't be going there. Oh, crap. Because, yes, they piped up and interrupted the ceremony, but it's because of me. And I don't ever want that to happen. And you need to create an itinerary for the day. Print multiple copies. I have a copy in the car and a copy in each camera bag, and I give another copy to the second shooter. So it's literally a time plan for everything through the day. Caveat with this, I guarantee you it will change on you. Every single way. And we're supposed to be eating now. Why is everyone still outside? It's going to change on you, but at least you've got a rough idea. So I'm probably going to change something in my packages because I've included an up to amount of hours in some of the text, and in reality, I'm not going to get to 6 hours. Bye. It's just you're not going to walk away from it. Yeah. So yes, you let them know what you're going to provide, but in terms of the amount of time you're going to be there, you've got to be somewhat flexible to a point. Right. To a point. And one important question to ask as well is, will you get fed?
That's in my contract.
Yes or no? And by the way, if they go no, it's absolutely fine. Not a problem. You can take something with you. You can maybe get some food at the bar. Again, ring the venue and check with them. Some venues are awesome. If you introduce yourself to the reception venues and get friendly with the bar staff and the people in the kitchen, and a lot of the time they'll sort you out. Okay. even if you've had a bride and groom agree to no food, they're breaking the contract. I get that at that point. But for me personally, I'm not going to make a big hoo-ha over that at that point. I'll survive. Like, I'm still going to get the job done. And really, they should provide the food.
Especially if you're working 12 hours.
I'm not going to spoil their day just because my belly's rumbling. Like, no. I'll take energy bars. I'll take some stuff with me, some water. I'll have a chat with the kitchen staff. Have you got anything left over? Would you mind at all sorting something out? If we have to pay, that's fine. And you just get it done. But ask the question. Ask the question. And don't be offended. Don't get funny if they say, well, no, you're not going to get fed. Why should we pay for you? That's fine. It's their wedding. They're paying.
You work.
They're paying you for your service. Yeah, and you're there ultimately to provide the photography services, not necessarily to get fed. Yes, they should really provide that for you. I get it. You know, they've got to can't expect to work on an empty stomach and work for hours with no water and nothing like that. Yes, fine. You've got to take care of yourself. But at the end of the day, prepare. So you've got stuff to fall back on. And keep some stuff in the car in the cooler. And you'll be absolutely fine. But ask as many questions as you can, get as many details as you can. In my itinerary documents as well, I include a link, a short URL for Google Maps. And I send the Google Map directions to the phone. So they're on the front page of my phone, they're in an email to my phone, they're on Dropbox, and they're on the itinerary. So I can go click on the PDF, Google Maps is there, done. And I know exactly how long it's going to take me to get there. And it's just multiple copies just in case. Sorry, I rambled on a bit.
That's all right. That's right. So, Mark, what's your preparation process?
Yeah, so basically, for the most part, same as RJ. Like to make sure that your camera gear is all ready to go. You have everything packed. Make sure you're packed up the day before. That way, if you realize you missed something, you still have time. Whereas if you're scrambling around the last minute collecting everything, you're bound to miss something.
Yeah, and to that end, real quick, I just want to interject. Stuart added, talking about like that time planning, also to check into and look at like where you're going to be parking your car to unload your gear, because that's important, and accounting for those things as well. So I just wanted to throw that in. Go ahead, Mark.
I'll also add, it's well worth having a roller bag, which he's actually bought. He was carrying a big shoulder bag for ages. Like, he's literally walking a big heavy load of gear. He's finally got a roller bag. Should have done it sooner.
Yeah. For me, parking is not typically a problem because I live out in the country and it's just small towns in my area. So typically for me, it's not a big deal. But if you are in a city, then absolutely that is very, very sound advice for sure. But so I make sure my gear's all packed, make sure all my batteries are charged for the camera and for the flash, and I have multiple spares of batteries for sure. And make sure the memory cards are formatted, and make sure I have more than enough memory cards just in case one craps out on you. And typically I shoot a little differently with my camera as well. Like, normally, if I'm just shooting around doing some stuff, even with family stuff, I'll usually shoot raw to one card and JPEGs to another, like high-resolution JPEGs on the other card. But if I'm doing a wedding, I have raw going to both cards, just because the weddings are that important, you can't redo them. But again, after that, you guys have talked about shot list and the same sort of thing. I basically tell them they have to give me a shot list, and I basically tell them, if you don't give me a shot list, that's fine. But if something gets missed, it's not my problem. And I've actually had a client give me a shot list. We did all the shots that were on there. And after I delivered the pictures, they said, well, a shot of this person's missing. We go back and check the list, and it wasn't on the list. So, but the other thing, too, is educating your clients as well for the day of, because myself, I haven't had this happen, but the guy that I second shoot for, it happens actually quite regularly, and their client will come up with a shot list that's this long, and then it turns out there's only enough time to shoot this many of them, so you kind of get going, and then things get weeded out. But make sure you keep absolute 100% track that they basically said, yes, we're saying we don't need this. Like, you have your list and you mark your list as you're going. So that's important too. there was some other point that I want to make, but I can't think of what it was now off the top of my head. I'm sure it'll come to me, but yeah, that's.
Quick tip.
Go ahead, RJ.
A quick tip then. Addition. So you've got your itinerary, you've got your plans for your shot list. I've keep notes so I can actually scribble notes on the main copy. I'll keep a pen on hand as well. I tend not to make notes on something like a mobile device because it takes too long to faff, and that just stays away for the most part, unless I need it for a specific thing, to ring a second shooter, to find a location, sat nav. But I also keep a USB thumbstick, which has a copy of the PDF for the itinerary, documents, agreements as well, and it also has a copy of, and this is another thing you should ask them, the first dance song.
So that's good.
Songs that are going to be played through the day at key points, find out what they are, who they're by. I actually grab a copy of them from Amazon, okay? Buy the download on Amazon, throw it onto here, because on 3 occasions, I've seen a DJ, beads of sweat,
Oh no!
on the laptop going, where's it gone? I had it before, where's it gone? Where's it gone? I can't find the file, where's it gone? You've not got the first dance song, have you? I've lost it. There you go.
That's a brilliant tip.
That's a brilliant tip.
And I also keep a copy on Dropbox as well, and it's saved the date on a number of occasions. Now, what I do not do on the back of that, I do not go and tell the client stuff that I just did. You forget it, but me.
I'm the hero.
Right. No,
you look like an ass.
Yeah. You got to work well with the other vendors.
Absolutely. Cover them, give them this, and then say, my drink is a... And they'll go and get you a drink. At that point.
Right.
But just take care of them. Everyone makes mistakes. Everybody.
Yeah.
Help them out where you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember some of my other points here.
Excellent.
So when you're doing the group shots, the planned shots, it's a good idea to basically, when you get a second, to talk to the bride or the groom or one of the wedding party, and have them get someone who can help you wrangle the people, because you don't know Uncle Bob from Uncle Joe, but if you have someone who should know everybody, they can help wrangle everybody up. It makes life a lot easier. So you can be setting up one shot with the people, and they can be gathering the other people, so you save a lot of time. Another point is, even before the wedding, you should find out from the client roughly how many group photos or pictures they're thinking of doing, because I've often been at a wedding where they have this great big list, but there's no time to shoot them all because they didn't plan it well. So that's good to communicate with them too, so they know how much time you're really going to need for the number of shots that they want. Mm-hmm. And another comment, you were talking about the venue. Sometimes if the venue is just too far away to get to and time doesn't permit, then I make absolutely sure that I show up early so I can scout out all the locations ahead of time of the day, because you don't want to just be rolling in there and not have a clue where you're going. So that's good to know, because like I said, you can't always get to the location, but if you do have the opportunity to get to the location ahead of time, get to the location as close to the time of day as when everything's actually going to be happening, because you could show up in the morning, but the wedding's not happening until the afternoon. The light will be completely different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's catch up with some of the comments we've got in the chat here and some of the questions that we've gotten as well. So I'm just going to work backwards. Hey IME is actually taking off for the evening, so thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Good night.
Juan added a really, really excellent point. I think one or both of you touched on this, but just to reiterate the importance of this, one of the do's is to clean your gear. He says a spot on the lens will be a pain in post, and that's 100% true.
Yep.
Juan also recommends what RJ was saying. You know, even if you have dinner in your contract, you should probably pack some energy bars in your bags as a backup plan because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, because dinner might not be till 7, 8 o'clock. So if you've been shooting since 10 or 11, then that's a long ways to go without anything.
Right, right. So Steve had a question. Have you guys run into any situations where the venue will not let you shoot if you do not have insurance?
I've never had anybody ask.
Okay.
Never had them ask. They don't. I mean, I've got it anyway. I've got indemnity.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're doing weddings, you better damn well have insurance.
Yeah.
But it's never been a problem. Never been asked. It will happen. Yeah, totally expect it. But I'm covered.
Okay.
Now, so sometimes if you're shooting in like a public area, like a park or something like that, you'll need special permits for that. But that's not quite the same thing. But it is something to keep in mind, and you have to make sure that where you're shooting is actually allowed, basically, whether or not you need a permit.
Yeah, public spaces like that, you should absolutely be looking into a permit. Okay, so we've got some other questions here, so let's go and get through some of these questions. And the first one we have comes from Danny Perez. We talked a little bit about this last week, but I'd like to get both of yours opinions on general tips for working with your flash in these situations when shooting a wedding. And what Danny was asking is, when you're shooting in a venue, where should you place the flashes for best coverage for photographing? So he said, example, do you put one in the front and the back corner? I know it's going to be venue dependent, so this is something you can't necessarily say this is how you do it every time. But how, Rick, how do you set up your flashes when you're working a venue?
For the most part, I mean, when we say work in the venue, by the way, at this point we're at the reception or it's after the wedding ceremony, because it's rare that wedding ceremonies have a lot of flash gear set up. You may have an on-camera flash, which they may allow you to use, but you're not really going to be walking around with an off-camera flash unless you have an assistant working holding it. But to be fair, your second shooter's role at that point, whilst they are there to help and assist, is to get extra coverage. So they won't be doing that all the time. And you're not going to set up, they're not going to let you set up stands in a church or in the ceremony venue typically. So when it comes to the reception, then I will either, I'll scout the room out hopefully prior to the wedding day. If not, I'll go in there, and you've actually got some downtime whilst they set the room up. There's usually a holding room where they put everybody in. It's usually got a bar, some trays with champagne on. People can meet, catch up. I have not seen you for years and all of that stuff, so you get some great candies there. And the staff are working hard to set the room up ready for the food, and then it has to be turned around again later for the dance. So the dance floor is either built, set up, or it's cleared, opened up, and you have the DJ will come in and rig his lights and set up as well. Dance floors, I will usually set up my flashes on the actual stage or where the DJ is, near his speakers. And by the way, your flashes will survive. They're fine. No problem. Near magnets and all that. Absolutely fine. So I usually set them up so it's just in the nest of stands with the DJ speakers and set up that way. Alternatively, you may set one in one corner of a room and one in the other corner of a room. So a kind of diagonal crossing at that point. So you've got dual coverage. You can have a backlight with a little bit of a fill, and you can flip it around for the other side. And depending on where people are turning, you may have some side light with some fill and so forth there. Most of the venues that I've shot at so far, I've had a DJ location stage. So the flashes have gone on the stage near the stands. And that allows me then to get onto the other side of the dance floor, get a wide shot, 24mm, usually on full frame. You'll see the DJ set, I get that. But a lot of the time it's kind of overpowered by the flashes anyway. And get a wide shot with the flashes in the frame at that point. I may put a flash on the trigger, which essentially is like on the hot shoe. It's a trigger that has a pass-through, which I don't think I have here.
I can grab mine.
I don't. No, I do. Hang on. Tell a lie. Got one here. So this trigger here has a pass-through. I'm just going to switch to the live preview so I can see what I'm doing. It has a pass-through hot shoe here, so all the TTL functionality still works through here, and I can go flash on camera and use the AF assist that's built in here. So if I do want a little bit of a fill, or I suddenly need to go, well, I'm not going to use the setup backlights or the stage lights. Now I'm just going to use on camera. There's some stuff I can run off and do that. And when I work with Stuart, we'll set up usually very, very similar. We've got kit that will cross-work with each other, although the lighting kit being still built a little bit on that regard. So it's fairly straightforward on the... And if I may share the screen for a moment, I might just have an example that may show that better.
Setting that up, I just want to interject. When you're working with flashes in a situation like that, one of the important things that you need to consider is the power capability of your flash and the distances at which you might set it up. So like when you're working with a DJ on a dance floor, you'll probably get pretty decent coverage with just about any sort of standard speed light or basic flash kit you'll be working with, which would be enough, more than likely, to cover the dance floor. But if you're looking at like covering a room, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to put one flash over in this corner and one flash over in this corner, and you're dealing with a big old reception hall that's 50, 75, 100 feet or something, whatever the case might be, a speed light is not necessarily going to be powerful enough to give you the kind of coverage and lighting that you're going to need. So that kind of goes back to what Rick was saying earlier, which is really understanding your equipment and how to use it. And that extends from your camera to your lighting gear as well, so that you understand if you have to light up a room that is X number of feet wide and you're actually working to light the whole room, that you have the equipment that is capable of doing so.
Yeah, although I will say on that, in the defense of the speed light, to a point, is that they can actually do quite a lot, because you're running at ISO 800 to 1600 more than likely in a reception. You're not shooting this stuff at ISO 100.
Right.
And you're shooting, I'm usually, when I'm shooting the first dance, around f4 to 5.6 in most cases, and the flashes are like 50mm zoom on the flash head, so you can focus the beam of light. You'll get an extra f-stop out of doing that as well. So you could potentially zoom the flashes to get a bit more out of them. It changes the pattern of the lights, inches and miles with all that. But the higher ISO definitely helps you. Right. Yeah, you can go for more powerful lights, like Spyros has picked up fairly recently, the AD200s from Godox. They're essentially a speed light on steroids. So yeah, absolutely. If you feel you need more power, and there will be a point where you get a big open room with dark roofs, and you're like, okay, I need to up the flash power, and we have those in our kit. Me and Stuart, between us, we've got two 200 watt second lights and a 360 watt second light, so we're sorted in that regard. But the speed lights, I typically run at about 1/8 power usually, and they'll keep up and recycle instantly. And they'll keep up with motor drive on the 5Ds, no problem at all. It's rare that we actually break out the big lights, to be honest.
Good to know.
I think it mostly has to do is if you're trying to actually overpower all the lights, like overpower the ambient light, or if you're actually trying to work with the light that's there, will determine, of course, whether you're blasting full power, or like RJ said, needing the bigger flashes. So that's the thing. But I don't think there's really any right or wrong answer as to where to set your lights up, because I sometimes have done it using two lights. I've sometimes done it with one light. I've sometimes shot just the ambient light because the light was decent enough in the venue, and sometimes I just have it in the hot shoe running and gunning. So it's mostly a preference more than anything, and what works for the particular situation.
Okay. So what do you got?
And you can. And you can actually, if you've got a light meter, you can meter your lights. On this zone of the dance floor, it's f4. On this area, it's 2.8. Yeah. Or you can mentally map it out and know from when I move this distance, I'm going to be losing 2/3 to a stop, and you open up accordingly. And you'll be riding your dials doing that a lot. So it's another option for you. This picture here was shot at a wedding, and the flashes there was actually two of them to the left of the little fella who's
striking
Saturday Night Fever, dancing, and they're on the stage, split apart, ready for the first dance. I will be in position near the chairs on the right-hand side of the frame, ready for the first dance, shooting towards the dance floor. Well, this guy was just ripping up the dance floor, enjoying himself, and his mum was to the right there. And I just thought, I've got to get this. And the flashes were preset, and I've just stopped down a third or two just to get the exposure good on them. And we can see inverse square law and the pattern of where the light's falling as well. The background goes dark. But to be honest with you, even with the bride who's in the background there in the white dress, that's not what the picture's about at that point. It's about these two here.
Right.
The interaction between them.
At this point. So usually the two flashes where they're positioned gives you quite a lot of flexibility with a little bit of opening up and closing down on the f-stop to compensate on that. I've also got here, there he was. He was fully open. I'll tell you, Windows. Says a lot, doesn't it, when you've got to go to paint. There he is again.
Yeah.
So I've framed this one up using those two lights as well, and I've purposely made sure we keep the shadow in.
Yeah. Bust and move.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. All right, so
he was a ton of fun to photograph.
I bet he was fun to photograph.
So, and I'm just trying to find whether I've got one shooting towards the dance floor.
Okay. While you're looking for that photo, we'll hit another question that you both already talked about a little bit, but I wanted to add a little bit of input here on it, and if you guys want to follow up with me, feel free to. Paul D said, for your wedding photography, do you prefer shop packages or to sell the services as requested? And we already established, Mark, you sell like services, hours, X hours times Y price.
Right.
Rick has packages to choose from. In my general opinion on just pricing things, what's going to be most important is your the prices are important, clearly, right? Because you need to hit the right price point, whatever that might be for your region, for your market. But on top of that, your ability to sell yourself to your client is just as important. And it's not really going to matter in the long run what method you choose to sell your services, as long as you have the confidence and the skill in your own abilities and
to be able to deliver the product.
And you have the wherewithal to sell that to your client. And that gets into like sales and marketing, which is a huge and very important thing for you to focus on and consider if you are getting into wedding photography or just selling your photography services in general. So I wouldn't stress too much over that. And honestly, what I'd recommend is you pick what you feel comfortable selling and what you feel gives you the best tools to sell the product to the customer and gives you the best value for your time as a photographer.
Yeah. And I think your area / market has a lot to do with it, because in my area anyways, 99% of the inquiries I get, not all of them, but a high percentage of them, all they want is the digital images delivered. So for me, offering packages when most people don't want a package, to me, I think is counterintuitive, because then I kind of look at it, well, people see I have this package with this book in it or this or that in it, and they don't want that, and it might scare them away. Whereas if I'm just offering just the basic, this is, you're paying for my services, that's what you get, and if you want anything on top of it, we can talk about that after the fact and add it. But like I said, most people don't seem to want that. So basically, I aim to upfront give what the higher percentage of people seem to want anyways.
That's a really excellent point, is considering what your market wants. And to build off of that point a little bit further, one of the things you could do is actually literally market test. So number one, just, you could start by, say, offering you could do a little market research and see what your competitors in your region offer. And if everybody's offering packages, then maybe you start with packages, or maybe you want to try to differentiate yourself and maybe you try offering services. And if you have a number of inquiries and nobody takes you up, then maybe you try packages and see which one works. And then the secondary thing you could do is actually what's called a split test on your website. Now, depending upon the kind of website you have, this may or may not be an easy thing to do. But what a split test does is you have two different options of a page that you will deliver to people who visit. And randomly, some people will see page A, which would be services, and some people would see page B, which is packages. And you could see how much of a response you get off of those pages. If you get more inquiries from the package, I can talk tonight. If you get more inquiry from the packages page that's being served up in the A/B test, Jason just corrected me, then I would recommend going with packages. Whereas if you get more requests, more inquiries from the services page, then you would say, okay, services seem to be what people want and are responding to, so I'm going to give them that instead.
Right.
So those are a few ways you could approach trying to decide which would be best for your market and you as a photographer in that market. All right.
Yeah, I agree. It's, it's market testing, finding out who your customer base is and what they're after, and it will change based on your locale as well, depending on where you are in the world. I've managed to find a couple of shots eventually. So just to go back to the flash lighting for the dance setup, the stage is behind the bride and groom who are center frame, and the flashes are on the edge. Again, they're set to 1/8 power, 50mm on the zoom. I'm shooting at ISO 1600, about 100th of a second at 5.6.
Love that photo.
And you can get some really cool shots, because as you move around, pulling wide, going telephoto, and I use a zoom lens at this stage of the day because it gives you more flexibility. The 24-105 from Canon, which people say, oh, it's no good. It's a great lens. It lets you pull wide, lets you go in and get close on the details. It's a constant f4, so if I'm set at any aperture, it's not going to change on me as I zoom. And you can get some cool frame shots, a frame within a frame. And if you move around the side where the light's just catching, short lighting other couples as they're dancing, you can get some great black and white shots there as well. So it's a very flexible setup. And flipping that around, what you can also do when it comes to doing something like the cake cut is get them to bring it on in front of the stage rather than in the corner of the room when you've got to pull forward. Using the flashes that you've set up ready for the first dance and dial over in cleaner lights for the cake cut. At that point, and you can do a tighter shot. I have actually got a wider shot of this as well, and a tighter shot, and you get a much better shot that way rather than being stuck in the corner of the room, which is more often the case. So if they can move the cake without destroying it, awesome.
Excellent.
I never touched the cake. I'm not taking responsibility for that.
Right. All right.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So we've got another question. We touched on this a little bit, but again, if you guys could elaborate on this for Mr. Noodle 1664 is wondering if you set a time limit on the portraits and do you stick to it? And then he says an example would be if you have a bride and a groom to shoot, would you allow them to move on even if you're unsure that you've got the shot that you need? And I will just chime in real quick and say part of that's going to be dictated by the shifting nature of the schedule that Rick mentioned earlier. You're always going to be limited on time. You're never going to be able to control that situation. And in my opinion, it would be a mistake to try to tell them they can't leave. But what I would recommend is if you don't feel confident that you've got the shot, let them know that, right? Like there's no shame in saying like, I'm sorry, but I actually don't have the shot yet, and I want to make sure I get this shot right for you. So can I have, another minute so that I can get this shot dialed in?
Again, the communication.
So how do you guys deal with that?
Well, I think you basically hit the nail on the head. It's like if the time allows, I'll use as much time as I can until we know we're done, and then if there's still extra time, then it's like, okay, well, if you're cool with what we got, then we'll call this part of it a wrap. But other times you're not even close to being done, but they're calling them in there because they're getting ready to serve the food and that. So there's not really a right answer. Just depends on how things are rolling. If they've left enough time, great. If they haven't, then you might end up not getting anywhere near what you're hoping to get.
Yeah, I think it's with that, if you've managed to pre-visit the venue or give yourself a little bit of time, especially because a lot of the time the bride and groom shots for myself tend to be done at the reception venue, because a lot of the time the churches have you in the wedding ceremony. You get the confetti shots as they come out, the group shots, some of the formals, and to be fair, they may even be done at the reception venue, because you find that they've got another wedding coming in 15 minutes and they've got a quick turnaround. Yeah. Or that's the last wedding of the day, and as soon as everybody's out, doors close. Okay, we're done then, I guess. Right, fine. And then you're on to the next venue. But if you can have a scout around, because you've got some time, especially if you're working with a second shooter, you can have them cover some candies whilst you go and have a look as a primary. Where can I bring the bride and groom to get something cool? Where can I maybe get the ring shots if you haven't got those done during the day? They will probably be done during the bride and groom prep. You're probably not going to be dealing with those during the ceremony. You've got too much to handle. So they will be caught up on later in the day come the reception. So go and find a cool little area that you can make something interesting with. Have a small flash kit that you can use as well. And speak to the bride and groom beforehand. Make sure they're aware of this leading up to the wedding, that I'm going to want 10 to 15 minutes of your time. So we can go and get some cool portraits of you with nobody's around. There's no pressure of you being watched. See if we can just have a little bit of a laugh, all three of us, get some cool shots, and then we can get you back to the party, all ready for the cake cut and the first dance. So don't make a big fanfare about it. Say, yeah, we're going to get some great stuff, but you don't want to build it up too much and make it into a big thing that you're going to go and do. Because remember, a lot of people are kind of camera shy. As soon as this thing comes in front of them, comes the camera. So you don't want to hype it up too much. Get them excited, but again, don't make them too nervous about what's going to happen. Don't make it, and here we go, we're going to go shoot for Vogue. Come on. Oh, God. Like, they're just going to shut down on you. Yeah. But have a little bit of a scout and see if you can find somewhere cool. There is always somewhere and something that you can get. Shoot through something. Shoot through a couple of things. Find a hole in a fence, a hole in a wall, patterned glass that you can shoot through and get the bride and groom on the other side. There's a load of things you can find. And the right lens, the right kind of light, you can make a crappy environment, like a living room at 1:30 in the morning. Cool. So it's just knowing what the gear is going to bring to that shot. And if you've got that stuff in your head, you can work pretty quickly to figure that out. If you're new to flash and not that sure on what your camera and lens is going to do, it's going to be a nightmare, and you're going to be sweating bullets. And they'll pick up on that.
Don't experiment with a bride and groom.
Oh, no. Experiment on your time and dime. Learn on your time and dime.
Exactly. Yeah.
Primarily.
Yeah. All right. We've got a related question from Danny, but I'll try to come back to this question, Danny. It was about taking photos of the cake, but we've got a couple of other really important questions that I think are something that we should address here. So Tom's question related to amateur photographers shooting couples and weddings and charging full rates, and basically dealing with competition of what some people like to call mom-tographers or Uncle Bobs or whatever, right? Which is people who are doing what you said earlier you shouldn't do, Rick, which is absolutely 100% true, which is not actually knowing how to use the gear, not even having the right or the right amount of gear. Like you said, you should absolutely, without question, go into a wedding with a backup camera, because if you screw the pooch on that, you screw the pooch. And unfortunately, you can't control that the competition exists out there. No. So you both have probably seen it and dealt with it. How do you manage that? And is it something that that's eaten into your businesses at all?
For myself, does it eat into my business? The odds are it probably does. But the other thing is too, again, if someone's asking me, they're obviously interested in my work, whether my price is out of their price range or not. I still try to educate them and tell them what to look for with cheaper photographers, because yes, absolutely, I might charge say $2,000, but they find this other photographer who will charge $800, and they saw some of the pictures and think their work is great, and maybe their work is great, but basically, you're probably not experienced if you're only charging $800, because you don't really know what your costs all entail and how much time it's actually going to take. So I try to educate the potential client, even if they're not going to be my client, to at least know what to look for, the questions to ask, so they can make their own informed decision, because it's the last thing that they want is to have their wedding ruined. But that being said, it's fairly common in some of these wedding Facebook groups where somebody posts saying, "Oh, my wedding's been ruined. The photos turned out horrible," and then everyone else is going on there, "Oh, you need to sue the photographer, this, that, and everything else." And then somebody who's more experienced will ask, "How much did you pay for that photographer?" Then 9 chances out of 10 they paid $500, and usually in a case like that, so you got what you paid for.
Right.
But yeah, if I'm talking to somebody, I have absolutely no problem if somebody doesn't use me, and because I'm a little bit overpriced for them, and that's fine. But I want them to at least make sure they're making an informed decision on their own, and that they know what to be looking for.
Absolutely. It's very, very easy to get caught into or drawn into the forums and the Facebook groups, and starting to look probably really too long, too hard at who's doing the same thing that you are in your area, who's a photographer on your street, who's in the same town, who's doing weddings, who's doing portraits. Even if they're charging £400, $400, and your base ones is $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, whatever it is, you need to ignore them completely. Not necessarily absolutely completely, but don't put too much time in worrying about who they are and what they're doing. You're providing a different service.
Yep.
You have your price point for your reasons, your cost of living, your overhead of the studio, your cost of doing business. And I think these days people spend too much time worrying about other people's shit instead of their own. And I'm guilty of done it in the past, and it just needs to stop, because there's nothing that you can do about the guy that's coming in and rocking up shooting weddings for £200. Guess what? That client who's paying him £200 to shoot a wedding is not your client, and never will be. So no point in worrying about it.
There really is a price point for everybody, but then you just
absolutely.
As long as you absolutely realize that at that price point that you might be looking at, what to expect, because even if you do hire a $500 photographer, hopefully you're going to at least get some decent pictures. Maybe you'll get all decent pictures. It's hard to say, because maybe they've got an knack for it. Who knows? But the odds are, you compare the $500 photographer's good images to a $1,500 photographer's images, you are going to see a difference in what you're getting.
Yeah, typically will. And to be fair, it's not to kind of speak down on the people that are shooting weddings for $200, $250 and what have you. Like, there's a market in terms of price of cars and houses that you buy. It's the same with anything that you buy.
Absolutely.
You buy, hopefully, within your means and within your budgets. And when you don't, you get in trouble. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, those people providing those services are providing it for a clientele that will only be able to afford that price. Although I do feel that they're undercharging for the amount of work that goes into a wedding.
Right.
If you're doing it right,
I think comes
I'm not
from
saying
lack
that,
of experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily that those people are doing it wrong necessarily. There will be some that are, no doubt, but not necessarily just because they're charging low means that they're bad or they're doing it wrong. Maybe they're just not business savvy. Maybe they've got other things they need to learn first in terms of the business side of it, and they need to up their rates to allow themselves to grow. But yeah, you do get what you pay for in most things. But what scares me is the amount of time when people are selling the shirts off the back, shooting weddings for a really low price, and they're going into doing it, trying to gain experience on somebody else's big day. Mm-hmm. That bugs me. Like, you need to know what you're doing. And yeah, the pricing and business side of it, man, that's just another thing completely to learn.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're going to fall flat in your face many a times with that. But it's difficult. But the less time we spend worrying about what others are doing, I mean, look up the food chain. If you're going to look at other photographers instead of looking at the ones that make you angry, mad, why are you doing that? Oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, you idiot. Make you want to go to the forums. Like, spend time looking up the food chain and contact a local photographer whose work that you like and say, look, can I come and assist? Can I come and speak to you over a coffee or some lunch or sometime just to gain something and learn from you? Put more time into growing yourself within the craft and growing your business, and just don't worry about Uncle Bob until the wedding day and is in your way. Then make him move. Yeah. But and if he asks you the settings, it's f22 ISO 100, 8,000th of a second with your lens cap on. Anyway.
And don't get me wrong, because everyone has to start somewhere. So absolutely, the $500 photographers are going to exist because everyone does have to start somewhere to figure out what's going on. But like you said, RJ, at least if you're at that point where you think you're ready to tackle the wedding, make sure you know your shit inside and out. So you know, okay, the shot came out really dark. Why? And you're not sitting there fumbling for 5 minutes trying to figure out what you did wrong. You should be at the point where it's instinctive, so that you know what to do to correct whatever issue might show up.
Yeah, yeah. These new camera sensors of today that are ISO invariant, where you can shoot at ISO 100 and up you go 3 or 4 stops and it turns out okay. Great. It's a potential.
My camera's supposed to be that way, but it's like I just get the exposure right, so I don't have to worry about
it. It's a potential tool in your kit. But what you're going to do when your client goes, "Oh, can I see that shot?" and they're looking at something that's very dark,
right?
Like, oh, it'll be great later. Like, no, and it doesn't instill confidence. They're not the fix for everything. Photoshop and post-production isn't the fix for everything. It's not a bad thing. I'm not against it.
Yeah, and it's a lot more work for you.
Yeah.
Doing your
post. If you're shooting 1,500 to 2,000 images, and I know people out there that shoot 11,000, multiple photographers that shoot 20,000 plus, but now there's 3 or 4 shooters at that point, so there's more people.
Yeah.
Right.
Still, and you're like, how many?
Yeah.
Man, your post-production must be hell. Like, there's people that shoot a lot. The last thing you want to be doing is culling through thousands of pictures and having to correct an exposure that's up and down and up and down and up and down, because your time is money. You're working on that thing for 2 to 3 days more than you should be, just because you're not getting it right, camera.
Yeah. Yeah. So to piggyback, I agree with everything you guys just said. One point I wanted to come back around to, though, is the importance of one of the things I mentioned earlier, which is your skills as a sales and marketing individual, because you want the clients that want you and who are willing to pay your price. So like both Mark and Rick said, the 200 or the 500 or the $800 client, whichever price point isn't yours, those aren't necessarily the clients that you want. And there's no point in worrying about who they're hiring or what they're getting on anything more than a surface level. But if you are investing in your own skills, both as a photographer and as a person who can sell and market themselves, then when you have the person who is your client but doesn't realize why it's worth it to spend $2,000, $2,500, $5,000, or whatever you might be charging for your wedding, you can educate them, communicate to them in a way that helps them understand and makes them want to pay. And when I say sales and marketing, I want to be very, very, very clear. I'm not talking about like scammy, slimy sales tactics. I'm really just talking about you being able to communicate with your client, understand what their needs and hesitations and worries are, ally those fears, and educate them so that they understand why it is worth it to pay X number of dollars in order to receive the product that you're going to deliver, which is going to be worth that much money. That's a huge, huge skill. Huge skill. Yeah.
The issue or the difficulty that people have when they're marketing themselves as a photographer in a photography business is the emotional attachment to your work, and then the doubt and anxiety and fear that comes along with that. I want to be at this level, I'm not quite there yet, and oh, this person's better than me, and I'm not quite there yet, or they've done that cool thing, I'm not quite sure how to do that, and I don't know, am I there yet, am I good enough? And there's a lot of stuff that kind of builds up with that. It's a very emotional thing to be involved in. The wedding day pictures are emotional for the clients as well, and their friends and their family. So it's not just a cold, straight business transaction, although there's things you can take away on the basics of marketing the business if just keeping it, simple and the simple things to stick to. But it's not I would like that, pay your money, walk away. It's not that simple. There's a connection between the work that you produce for the client, how you are as a person, when you meet the client, how they are with you, how you gel together, how you interact, that goes into it as well. And part of that is a big part of the marketing side. You're not necessarily hard selling like, oh, but come on, you want this, don't you? Come on, you just want to go, next package up, come on, next package up, go on. You really want to. It's not a hard sell necessarily at that point. You've got to be more subtle than that, and you've got to build a relationship in a relatively short space of time as well. And the skills that you bring into that from your own life as a person, where you've worked before, how you interact with your family, with your friends. And it's difficult. It's the marketing and business side of it is a whole other thing. And I think there are some amazing business people out there who are photographers who are awesome at the business side. And when you look at their work, not that amazing, but they're really, really good in the business. There's few out there that have great business skills and great business minds and amazing work as well. Very, very few. If you can gel those two together or get a good mix, that's kind of the end goal. And what we tend to do is, I want to be an amazing photographer. I want to be able to do this and really cool stuff. And new gear, new camera. We go into everything like that. We go into the emotional side of it and the pictures and the photographs, and the business side kind of it gets put over there a little bit. And we suffer from that. I think it's a difficult balance to strike. I wouldn't say I'm the best business person in the world. Definitely not. I can learn a lot from people. I'm looking to connect with some commercial photographers over here, one down in Leicester, who I've been to a couple of his workshops already. I've not yet sat and spoke to him and say, look, I'd like to sit down one-to-one with you, or maybe do some training with you, or, what do you think that we could do? What would it look like? What's it going to cost? Because he's not going to help me for free.
Right.
Like that. And, you can always learn and learn yourself. And by the way, yes, you can learn from people further up the food chain. You can absolutely learn from people starting lower down than you as well.
Absolutely.
Don't ever think you know everything, because you don't.
No, that's a total truth.
Unless you're Joe McCallum. But anyway.
All right. So while you're up, Rick, Steve had a question, and he's wondering what you shoot with and what your typical lens focal length is that you bring to the wedding. So maybe maybe you both could just kind of give a quick rundown of your main gear for the wedding. I know the full list is exhaustive, but if you want to kind of hit the highlights, the important points, the bodies, the key lenses that you bring with.
If I had a separate webcam, which I think I'll pick up for the next time I do something like this, I'll be able to pick it up and show you. Anyway, I shoot Canon myself, although I do also own as we saw earlier on, a Fuji X100. I'm going to just switch back to the other feed because it's more real time, because the delay's messing me up here. So X100. Now this is my personal camera. It's my daily carry. I've usually got it in the bag with me. I'll shoot some street stuff with it. I'll grab it if I see something that I want to photograph. I've shot portraits with it, environmental portraits. I also will run it at weddings, and it's usually on my hip as an extra camera because it weighs nothing. So it's just on a clip and it's there. And it's great for candids because it's silent, whereas you just don't hear it. Whereas if you fire my primary camera is up, a 5D Mark. You know that going off. It's not a quiet camera. But my primary bodies, I have two of these, are Canon 5D Mark IIs. This is the main one, which is labeled Body A. Okay, and they are, every single body that comes into the kit is tested with every lens in the kit. It's calibrated using Focal calibration software to every lens in the kit. mine and Stuart's kits, we both shoot Canon, so they will cross over. He's got a 70-200, I've got a 70-200. If one drops the other, if one drops up one of their lenses, Stu, I need your 70-200 because I'm doing the long shots for the Kiss, and we've calibrated them on the bodies, or we've got them so they're close enough so we can literally swap over and carry on. I have 2 of these 5D Mark IIs. I would rather have in a kit 2 bodies that if one craps out on me, I grab the other one and I work straight away. I know exactly where the buttons are, what they do, same sensor, same image output. The only difference between these 2 bodies, this one being newer, the screen at the same brightness level is a little bit brighter. So when you're looking at the preview, mental note, it's a bit brighter. But I do tests to note this stuff down. Lens-wise...
Histogram helps.
Yeah, histogram, although I rarely refer to the histogram these days, even with weddings. I primarily shoot manual, and that's not a bill of rights. It's not a, oh, look at me. It's just how I work. The only time I'll go to aperture priority if I'm getting, it's sunny, it's cloudy, it's sunny, it's cloudy, it's sunny, it's a storm. And I'll let the camera help me out. If it's constantly changing, or that maybe in an indoor environment that's got a open shade, dark section, in full sunlight, bright, I'll be riding the compensation dial then at that point on aperture priority. I usually shoot aperture priority because I want my f-stop to stay consistent rather than shutter priority, even when I shoot sports, against many people's advice. Anyway, the lenses, I have the 70-200. This is the version 1 IS. It's a great lens, a workhorse lens. It hates backlight. Someone walking into the church, outside it's nice and bright and sunny, the light's flooding through the doors. This will hunt like a good one, and contrast dies. I know because I've tested it. I know I didn't test it on a wedding, I tested it on a personal shoot. So I took it out, tested it, found out where it worked. I shot white seamless in the studio, found out where it didn't work. Okay, note, that's not so good on backlit. My main lenses that I will use the 24-105, which is a zoom a lot, because it's very flexible. An f4 lens is great. You'll get a lot covered. Events and weddings, the reception, this is the main one that gets used when we light the first dance. And I say we, that's when I'm working with Stuart. My favourite lens, we all take a moment. Yeah, this is the Canon 35 f 1.4L version 2. Now it ain't cheap, I get that. The version 1's an awesome lens. My lens prior to this was a 35 f2, the 20-year-old version. Awesome lens. I went through 2 of those things and eventually wanted to gain the stop of light, so I went to the 1.4, got a rebate and thought, screw it, I'll get this, because this is going to be in the kit if I don't drop it or something daft for a lot of years. So a good investment. I'd rather buy this, lights, build a lens kit up than buy a 5D Mark IV. You know, because a new camera is only going to do so much. So the 35, love it. Use that a lot. That's the first lens that goes on for bridal prep, the first lens that goes on when I get to the church for documentary and candids. I just love that focal length. Secondly, I'm an 85 guy. This is the 1.8. This is my second copy of the 1.8. I broke one already. And it's great. Bargain. Does the job. Great for headshots, great for portraits, candids. Recent acquisition. Oh, hang on. Come on. We'll show you the lens that rarely comes out. I've shot it once in 14 months. The 50 1.8. When I shot crop sensor cameras, I used to use it a lot because it's an 80mm field of view equivalent on a crop. These days, I just don't use it. Thought of getting rid of it, but it just kind of sits at the bottom of the bag. And then the other one is a Canon, where are we? There's the camera. It's hiding me. A Canon 100mm L f2.8 IS. Now again, these aren't cheap lenses. The L version lenses, I have 4 of them. My 85 isn't an L version lens. I don't care that it isn't. It does the job fine. The reason why I've invested in the L lenses for these is they give me weather sealing, image stabilization in the 100mm. It doubles up for a great studio focal length as well. So it's double duty. This is in mine and Stuart's kit. I bought this. He's recently bought an ultra wide, a Tamron. So if I need an ultra wide for a job and he needs a macro, we swap. we both don't need to own these things. So we have a working kit together at this point. Some that overlaps, which is good for backup, and the rest of it, dude, I need a macro. There you go. Dude, I need an ultra wide. Okay, thank you. That's fine. The other camera, which doesn't actually get used for stills a lot because I don't like it for stills.
Yeah.
And it's stuck in the camera bag. Oh my!
Doesn't want to come out.
It is. Doesn't want to come out, and the microphone's falling off again.
Oh, is that the M3?
That's the M3. Yeah. It's awesome for video, for behind the scenes and vlogs. The 3 that I tried to do, I hate vlogs. I won't be doing anymore. But for behind the scenes stuff, it's awesome. YouTube tutorials. This is the video camera. It replaced the 60D that I had. Love it for that. Great. Flip up screen. Great little camera. And if you're shooting in good light, it's okay. Other than that, I hate photographing like this. I want the
no viewfinder. Right.
Can't stand it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why it doesn't get used. Could it be used if, God forbid, if everything else failed? Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you get it done, but it's not great in low light either. But that's the stills kit really, primarily, and then the lighting kit that's separate.
Okay. Real quick, before you jump in with your gear, Mark, I just want to say thank you very much to Kevin for that $10 super chat for the show. That's very, very much appreciated, and we always like to acknowledge that and let you know that we appreciate your support of us doing this. So, Kevin, thank you very much for that super chat. It's very generous of you, and we appreciate it very, very much. All right, so, Mark, what do you have? What's your kit? And you said you principally second shoot. Is that correct?
Yeah, so far this year, yes.
Okay.
I think I've got 4 that I have scheduled so far to second shoot.
Okay. So what's your lens and camera kit?
So 2 bodies. I had the Pentax K1, which is the full frame, and then I also my backup is the Pentax K5 2S, which is a crop body. So typically what I'll do is I'll keep a wide lens on the crop body and the longer lens on the full frame body. So myself, I like shooting long, and the one guy that I shoot with on a regular basis, it works well because he shoots medium to wide. So basically, when we have our complete set, he's got a good variety because he hardly ever shoots long. So basically on the full frame, I got the Sigma 70 to 200 2.8 on there, and on the crop body, I have my Pentax the 20 to 40. So those are sort of the primary ones that I work with for the most part. But I also have a prime 40 millimeter lens. I also have a prime 70 millimeter lens. Both of those are Pentax lenses, and I also have a Sigma 105 macro, and I also actually have a Sigma 10 to 20, which is a crop lens, but I don't use it that often unless I know the place that I'm doing the wedding has a lot of big scenic stuff. Then I might bring that, but for the most part, most of that stuff I can capture anyways with my 20 to 40 on the crop body, and of course there's a small flash kit as well too.
Excellent. All right, so we're running a little bit short on time, so I want to kind of try to rapid fire answer the last few questions and then wrap up and give Rick a chance to let everybody know where you guys can find him online. So this is an important question that Sandy asked, and if you guys could both kind of tackle this and let us know how people can deal with this. Sandy says, how do you deal with guests who bring their DSLRs or their iPhones or their iPads or whatever else and get in the way of the photographer, of you guys trying to do your work? Is there a tactful way you can manage that sort of thing? And how do you deal with that situation?
Well, myself, I will suggest, but I don't mandate it, I suggest that the bride and groom let the guests know that it's basically no cameras allowed if possible. But I have actually been at a wedding once where I can't remember if they were about to do the rings or they were about to do the first kiss. So that I don't remember. But I went up the main aisle so I could shoot straight down at them, and about 5 people all just came in right in front of me. And so all I did was I just cut right in front of them because I'm the one who's paid to be there and got in their way. nobody complained, luckily, but that's what I'm there for. You're going to get in my way, then I'm going to get in your way, because I'm the one who's supposed to be there doing the job.
Right. And Kevin, let me just interject real quick. Kevin in the chat basically said the same thing. He says, say, excuse me, please let me get the shots for the bride.
Yeah, I don't even say excuse me, because there's stuff going on up there, and I don't want to interrupt what's going on. So I just basically, I just get right in their face, because I have to be there. It's if I miss a shot, that it doesn't look.
You've got to get it. You've got to get it done. They're a nightmare. I always recommend an unplugged wedding, but usually it falls on deaf ears. Not from the bride and groom's perspective, but for the guests.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Just in and out, done, and there they are in the aisle. And there's always the iPad with the pink case. Oh, is it always a pink case? There's a video online of someone taking video or pictures of a dolphin. And somewhere, and the dolphin sees a big pink iPad and in the water. And it's like, I kind of wish that would happen. But, you can't go smashing iPads. But you just have to go and get in front of them. I mean, if people get in your way, you've got to try and move if you can and get the job done. It's becoming more and more of a problem, and I may start actually talking to the vicar and the priest and just saying, look, can you have a word with the guests, before we start the ceremony? Look, can we recommend having an unplugged wedding? Keep the phones away, because they may listen and actually do it at that point. See if they're willing to do it, but without kind of stirring up any trouble. It's a delicate balance, you can't go taking film.
And sometimes that's where a long lens comes in handy too, because if all these people are in the way, you can almost even get behind them and just shoot over somebody's shoulder, worst case scenario, and still get the shot. Well, hopefully still get the shot that you're looking for. But if you've got a wide lens on there, you're screwed. You're not gonna you're not gonna be able to work around it.
Or you take the monopod. Out of the picture.
All right. So a couple other quick questions, and then we'll wrap this up. The other one. Let me find it here. Sorry, guys. Oh, here we go. Juan was wondering if you guys have ever had any bad experiences with the clients and how you handled it, as far as like partial refund or other situations like that.
Myself, to be honest, I've actually been pretty lucky. I know the guy that I second shoot for, one of the weddings we did, everything seemed to go fine during the day of, but then after, when he did his delivery, then for whatever reason, the bride just suddenly became a bridezilla after the fact. But how he dealt with it, I honestly don't know. But myself, no, I've been pretty lucky, knock on wood.
Same for me. I've not had any bridezillas to deal with yet, or any major issues, or any after the fact problems with it. They've just said, oh, we're not happy with this, or you didn't do this, and you cover your arse. You've got your agreements, you've got your insurance, you've got your itinerary and plans and your discussions beforehand. Can you account for absolutely everything? Like, no, and things can go wrong.
Absolutely.
Things out of your control. You try and mitigate all this stuff as much as you can with backup gear and all your preparation. And ultimately, if you've dropped the ball during the wedding day, God forbid, but if you've made a mistake on a job, if you've not delivered, whether it's a family portrait sitting or a wedding day, granted, you can't go, oh, hang on, let me have another go, obviously. But if it's a job that you can offer to reshoot and do it and hold your hands up, I didn't deliver as I should, let me take care of that for you, do it on your time and dime, then do it. If they're at the point where they're going to walk away, don't want to deal with you anymore, okay, and you may have some fallout on that. And at that point, hopefully they're not going to be one of these people that slate you online and it just turns into a petaphysical article. But, hopefully it doesn't go that far. But just be upfront and honest. I'm sorry, let me see if we can put this right for you.
Yep.
You hope it doesn't get to the nasty point where it goes to legal and all of that, but that's where the insurance is there to help you. It's going to be hard to recover from at that point, but you do what you can. And as much preparation as you can beforehand, and then hopefully You don't have anything like that. So if everyone understands each other, where the line is drawn, what everyone's going to be doing, what everyone's going to be getting, should be okay. It's difficult.
Yeah, and when you have your pre-meeting too, like before you even book, hopefully you'll get a good indication. Again, like I said before, see whether or not you guys are going to work well together. If you meet with the potential client and something rubs you the wrong way, or you just get a bad vibe about it, then that's probably the time to bail on it, just because your instincts are usually good, and you end up, if you ignore your instincts, that's what the odds are more likely you're going to get into that situation. Whereas that's not always the case, because you can meet someone and think they're the best person in the world and then find out later that they're not. But you can usually most of the time get a pretty good feel right up front, and that's the time when you decide whether or not you want to take the job or not.
When you're working together as well as a team, second shooting, you're going to have strengths and weaknesses, within yourself, and one person's going to be better at dealing with a certain personality type than the other. And if it's a second shooter that can handle the situation that's happened during the day, and it might not be a major problem, but just something that needs kind of dealing with, then dude, like, you're better at handling this kind of thing. Can you go and speak to the bride? Can you go and take care of this? It's absolutely fine. You're there to work as a team. There's, Stuart's very, very good at handling people that get a bit rowdy and drunk as the night progresses. I can deal with them to a point, but I get to a stage where you need to get out of the way. I'm working. Get rid of him. Because don't get in my way when I'm working. But you can work with each other's strengths and weaknesses and that, and hopefully handle the situation. And worst case scenario, if the worst thing that could happen is you lose all the images. Prepare yourself for the storm.
That's one thing I dread to think of ever happening.
That's the worst situation possible.
That actually is a good point too. Like when I'm working, I shoot both cards, but also if I'm switching. If I shot in the church and then I'm moving to another location, that's a good time to switch memory cards. Don't put everything all on one card, which is another good reason to have multiple cards. That way, maybe you lose the wedding, but you're not going to lose this, or you'll at least have something to deliver. Versus if you have them all on one card and the card takes a big dump on you, then you're totally screwed.
If you notice, one card slot on the 5D Mark IIs. The 5D Mark III has a dual card slot. 5D Mark IV, the 1DS, the 5DS. My cameras don't. So to mitigate the chance of an issue, second shooter for one, and I change cards at bridal prep, card change come ceremony, card change come reception at each stage of the
regular
day.
Intervals.
Regular intervals, So no one card gets maxed out full. On occasions, you might end up with card full because you got carried away, but you make sure you change at each stage of the day, and you store them away safely. If you feel that your equipment, your bag's at risk, which will be holding your card holder, then keep it on your person.
Yep, absolutely.
At that point, get a wallet and keep it on you, because they've got to get it off you first before they go missing. At that stage, and then instantly, as soon as after a wedding, I'm back to the studio. I offload and back up the raw files there. I offload and back up to a small portable drive as well, an internal backup or local backup, and it goes on a server which is RAID 6 with 2-disk failover. So I've got copy on the card and multiple backups from the card as well before I've even started looking at them. And no matter what time it is, I'm studio, home, backups, done.
First thing you do before you go to bed, for sure.
Got to do it.
All right. It is 8:03, so we're going to wrap this baby up. I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us tonight and contributed in the chat. We loved having your questions. We loved being able to answer them and share some of our insights, their insights really, because as we all know, I don't shoot weddings.
Yeah, and big thanks to RJ too, of course.
Yeah, and huge thanks to you, Rick, for joining the show and sharing your expertise and all of your tips here to help people understand how to approach this better. Last thing we want to do, Rick, is just give you a chance to let everybody know where to find you online. So if they want to, follow you on YouTube, Instagram, wherever you'd like them to find you, if they want to find you, let them know.
Okay. Just before I do that, I have a document that I prepared for this show. Spyros and Mark have got a copy of it. A lot of the stuff we've covered, and a lot of the stuff we've kind of covered because it's naturally, organically happened with the questions that have come in. There's a couple of things which haven't been mentioned yet with extra stuff that I take on a wedding gig, and that's beyond the cameras and lenses and what have you. Would it be useful if I made this available, say, as a PDF, if you want to slam it on a Dropbox download for people, Spyros?
I've got it in Google Drive already, so if you want me to, I'll just share that link right here in the chat, and people will be able to just bookmark that link and come to the document and see everything you put together.
Absolutely. It's literally, I just sat down and wrote how I approach a wedding and the things that I do to check and what I take with me. So it's not a pretty document at this point, but hopefully there's some useful information for everybody on there at that stage. Now, where you can find me, other than on my couch, my website is rjbradbury.com. That's just rjbradbury.com. I think .co.uk still works as well, but go to the .com. I have links on the website as well, which are on the bottom left-hand corner to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn as well, although I don't post on LinkedIn as much as I should, but I'm on those. I don't do Snapchat, so don't look for me on there. I'm not a fan of having dog ears. I use those, but you'll find me mostly on Instagram via Instagram stories. YouTube, I'm going to be putting some more content on there as well. People within the self-help photographer community, you guys have been awesome to get to know over the last year or so, where I've been popping into the shows and I've commented on the videos, Spyros and Mark as well. If there's any questions that you guys have on the back of this, if you go, damn, I wish I'd asked this, then I'm sure, as you know, you can ask Mark and Spyros, of course, but if you want to ask me something, absolutely fine. Drop me an email, DM, whichever, and I'll get an answer to you as soon as I can do.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick, so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you, everybody else. RJ's link is in the chat, as well as the document link. Oh, sorry about that. www.rjbradbury.com. There's the proper link. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Rick's channel, subscribe to Mark's channel.
It's a lot of channels.
It's a lot of channels. But whether or not you do, thanks again for joining us, and make sure you do the most important thing, which of course is to get out there and take some damn photos, all right?
Yeah.
We will see you guys on the next show.
Thanks, everybody.
This is the endless wave while I try to find all the stopping buttons. Good night, everybody.